I got up over 80%, but I think the isolation was more the problem than the actual depriving myself of things, because the isolation just meant that there wasn't that much that I could do. So I ended up slowly getting into sort of a depression. And I recount this story, I forget, somewhere on my blog, but I just remember skiing one time with friends and being depressed. And I'm like, well, why am I spending this money to ski? Because I was at some other mountain where I had to pay for the lift ticket. I was like, why am I spending this money to ski when I could be at home just saving money or studying, because I was getting my master's at the time, and I could just be at home studying and then I'll just save all that money. So it got to a point where I was not doing social things to save money, and that was a mistake. I was making coffee this morning, and I just remember a time where my wife bought me an extra V60 cone, like the things that you make pour over coffee with. And I already had one, and she bought an extra one. And I was like, I started stressing about the extra filters that I'd have to buy for it. And looking back on it, it's just absolutely insane. But when you're trying to save every single penny, then that's the thoughts that you have, and they're so counterproductive. And one of the biggest joys of being in the position we are now financially is that I've just let go of all of that, and I realize that I can live the fullest middle-class lifestyle that I'm used to, that I'm not going to be out buying fancy sports cars or booking flights on private jets that are going to in any way jeopardize our ability to spend. The reason being a father was so scary to me is all the other experiments I can undo, really. So this is the one experiment that is oh, I just have to do it and then see how it goes. It's not I can undo it, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I took the risk and just went for it. And yeah, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. So it's inspired me to do more experiments and to put myself into other situations. I've been, especially in the f.i.r.e. world, I've become a recluse. This is the first interview I've done in a year, and I don't do any in-person events really anymore. And it sort of inspired me to maybe get back out there and start meeting some people again.
Welcome to Catching Up to Fi, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to Fi together.
Hello, and welcome back to Catching Up to Fi. Boy, do we have a special Christmas present to unwrap today, Jackie. We are really fortunate to have an OG in the FI movement with us today. He reached out to us after talking to a friend at 6 Degrees of Separation. I don't think he's been on a podcast in a year. So we get a special treat, and so does our audience. They may not have heard of Brandon Ganch, the Mad Fientist. Jackie's wearing a shirt. Why are you wearing a shirt, Jackie?
I am wearing his shirt because he is our special guest for today. He is the pioneer, a giant in the f.i.r.e. movement. He was probably the biggest influence on me as I was starting my f.i.r.e. journey. I just loved his brain. He's reading the IRS code. He's doing the ultimate savings retirement account with HSAs. Just so many things just resonate with me, and he was my go-to guy. So I owe him a lot in terms of the role that he played in my journey. So we're excited, and I am repping his t-shirt today. And this is the original one too, back in 10 years ago.
All right, Jackie, you're his fangirl. Why don't you introduce him to our audience?
I certainly will. So like you said, Brandon Ganch, he is better known as the Mad Fientist. It's a made-up word, but so awesome. And people say it like it was written in the dictionary. So he launched Mad Fientist in 2012. That was right around the time my daughter was graduated from high school. So I was just starting to think about FI. So he had two big goals in mind: research and write about innovative ways to achieve financial independence quicker. And then also to talk to others who had retired early to find out how they did it. That's kind of what we're doing, Bill, right? And he was one of the few people that was focusing on creative things when it came to early retirement. All of these strategies and clever tax avoidance. And all this led to his wild experiments in financial independence and some really cool things that he shared with the world, including me. So between his podcast and his blog, he hit cool articles and cool topics like how to access your retirement funds early. That is the very first thing people ask when they find the FIRE movement. How to stack tax benefits to get even more savings. And then, of course, my favorite, HSA, the ultimate retirement account. So in 2016, at the age of 34, he walked away from his full-time job as a software developer for good. But that was just the beginning. So even though he left his job, he still doesn't consider himself retired because he's now working harder than ever. So the difference is he's working on things that are important and very exciting to him. And rather than what a boss tells him what to do, I feel exactly the same way. He's now a family man. He's in his 40s, has a wife, Jill, and 2 adorable kids. So today he joins us to share the personal side of transitioning from saver to spender and why his post-FI life is drastically different from what he ever imagined. So Brandon, welcome to Catching Up to FI.
Thank you so much for having me and for all those kind words. I feel like I'm so far out of the space these days. So when I hear nice things from smart people like you guys, it does make me feel good. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you made a difference in my life too. And leading into this podcast this morning, I took a 2-hour walk with the dogs on a beautiful fall day. And I was listening to some of your work. And just in the last week or two, you dropped a podcast and an update on things that you had learned about how to learn to spend. And it was like throwing a pebble in a pond. It resonated. People were reaching out to me saying, oh, the Mad Fientist dropped another podcast. It's been a year. So it's really fun to reach back to the things that at the origins of the movement, because our late starters may not know your journey. And your journey, like we were talking about before, is kind of like a hero's journey. It's like Star Wars or the Odyssey, where there's a call to action and you go through trials and tribulations like Hercules. You come full circle and you reach FI, and then guess what? You become the mentor to the next person who's on the hero's journey. And that's how we see you. So Brandon, take us back. You've told these stories before, but they haven't been told with the perspective that you have now. Where did your financial journey start? Maybe even in the family with your money scripts that led you to become such a frugal saver and early f.i.r.e.
Yeah, a lot of it is just my personality, which a few years ago over the holidays, I interviewed my grandparents and my parents to figure out where this obsession with money came from, because I've been obsessed with money for as long as I can remember, to be honest. And chatting to them, they really felt that it was just like a inbuilt thing. It's definitely something that's clicked with me. I have a really analytical brain, so math has always been a favorite and numbers make sense to me. But yeah, my grandma recounts a story where they had a friend over and they were throwing quarters into their pool. And as soon as I found one, I just obsessively just dove for more and more quarters as a young, like 4 or 5-year-old kid. And then I had to go home and go to bed for school. And as soon as I got home, I called my grandma and said, did anybody find any more money in the pool? And I was just obsessed with it. So I don't really know why, but as far as I can remember, that's what I've been focused on. And I always wanted to be rich one day, not because I liked fancy cars, or I don't think I've ever used money to like try to impress people or anything, but I just wanted to be rich and have that security and have a portfolio to manage. But I never really was in a hurry. So it was, I don't know, I can't remember what year it was, but it was a long time ago. And I came across getrichslowly.org and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. I just want to get rich slowly. There's no rush. It's not like I need a new Porsche or something. So that really appealed to me. And then it was through his site that he ended up interviewing Jacob Lundfisker from earlyretirementextreme.com. And that was the first time I heard that FI math of retirement's not an age. It's actually just a function. It's a formula, and it's just based on your spending and your income. So it was just eye-opening. And that just flipped a switch, because it went from like a vague goal of getting rich, which again, I didn't really know why. It was just, I thought, yeah, I want to get rich one day, to then having a concrete thing like, okay, wait, I can buy my freedom. And then it was just crazy from then on, and maybe a bit too crazy, which I think we'll talk about a little bit. But yeah, once I realized, that retirement wasn't an age, it was a formula, it was an equation, really. That was it. I was off to the races.
So at that point, Brandon, when you said you just wanted to be rich, you wanted to cut out early. So did you have any concrete ideas of what you wanted to do versus working?
No, I always knew best. So every boss I had, I was smarter than, and I knew better than them in my mind, which is a good trait, I guess, because I feel like I can do anything, but it's sort of bad in some ways too, because I'm in my mid 40s, so I'm still doing like physical things that I think that I could do when I was 20. So I always just had a lot of confidence, I guess, in my abilities, and I couldn't handle the bureaucracy of big organizations, and I couldn't handle having some managers that maybe weren't as competent as me in certain areas telling me how to do those certain things. So it was more a freedom thing. It was never I just want to do nothing thing. I was too risk averse to be an entrepreneur. I really respect people that just chuck it all in and just go for it. I could never do that. I always imagined I would start businesses after reaching FI because I'll set myself up, and then that way I can take more risks and it won't matter if I fail at these things. Funny thing is, once you have enough money, then money is no longer really a motivating factor anymore. So all those businesses I thought I would start, they were all just money based. Like it wasn't for the actual joy of creating something. It was more, oh, I could do this and that would make me more money than my current job. But then once you have enough money, then that motivation sort of goes. So I haven't created all those businesses that I thought I would, but that's okay because I've found other things to do. But yeah, it was mainly I just wanted freedom to do the work that I wanted to do and not have to answer to bosses and things like that.
Well, you say that you were sort of money obsessed when you were a kid, and you collected quarters from the bottom of the pool, and maybe you hoarded a little bit. Did your parents instill this in you? Because there's genetics to this, then there's epigenetics where the environment may influence you. Did you have money scarcity? What was money like in the household? Or was this just your thing and your parents couldn't understand it?
So my brother is good with money, and we grew up in the same household. He has definitely the opposite. Not the opposite, but he's good with money, but he was a spender as a kid. So my mom, in that episode that I talked about where I interviewed her, she recounted a story where like we'd both get like $10 from grandma for Christmas or something. And my brother Brian would immediately spend it, and that would be gone. It would be some toy that just broke, and he would spend it immediately. And then whereas I would save it, or I would try to find some way to grow that money. And that was a very different behavior, whereas we both grew up in the same household. Money scarcity, like my parents divorced when I was in kindergarten. So a lot of the time it was my mom working to support us. So money was never abundant, but it was never tight in a way that it impacted us as kids. We would know the value of money because we would never waste anything. And like we would often hear no every time we asked for like, or those the pump shoes in the 90s where you could pump up the soles. And it took me many years of begging for those to get those for Christmas, I think probably from my grandparents one year or something. So yeah, it was definitely, money was tight, but I don't feel any like money scarcity or anything like that. My brother's very different to me. We both grew up in the same house, just a couple years apart. And now having kids of my own, I realize how much more their little personalities are just baked in. I would have said a lot more environment was impacting personality before having kids, but now that I see my two kids and they're so different and they've been the exact same household pretty much for 3 years. So yeah, I'd say a lot of it's inbuilt. Some of my upbringing has played a part, and especially like my dad had always told me about investing in things, and he bought me 5 shares of stock back in the days when you'd look it up in the newspaper and it would be like 11 and 7/8 and stuff. So I think that played a part, and he always talked about starting early because of how it can compound. So I think a combination of all those things really.
So you came out of the gates on fire. Your hair was on fire, maybe 18, 21. You go through college, you become a tech guy. You're one of the original Tech Fi people that blogged. How did you get it right out of the gates? In my 20s, I was bumbling around, trying to figure things out, and I woke up to money at 50. It took me 20, 30 years to figure this out. You got it right from the beginning, and you retired at 34. What did you do that was right? And then what did you do that were the mistakes along the way?
Well, I think that meeting my wife when we were 20 probably played a big part. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't out at the bars every weekend trying to meet people and things like that. And she was thankfully okay with my extreme frugality. So we did a lot of really cool things. We just did them more intelligently maybe than the average 20-year-old. We bought a house in 2004 or 2005 in Scotland. We did it up. It was before I knew what a live-in flip was. We just bought a house that we didn't like and then made it into something that we did like. But then we decided to move to the States. So we sold that in 2007, right before the whole world collapsed, financial world collapsed. And we made 50% on that. So that was luck, that was timing, but it was also me wanting to build wealth and buy an asset and improve it. So there was a little bit of that, but also there was a ton of luck and timing, which luck is obviously a huge part of many people's FI journeys. So the timing was perfect. And yeah, we made 50% on that in like 2.5 years. Whereas usually you buy a house and sell it in 2.5 years and you're underwater, and that's a huge mistake. There's a lot of luck to it. But again, it goes back to my constant focus on the money. To give you an example, my wife, then girlfriend, she got the opportunity to go to China for 3 months to do optometry because she had to go back to school in the States. When we moved back to the States, her UK qualification didn't count. So she had to go back to school. And she had the opportunity to do that. And I was like, well, let's do that. That sounds amazing. So I'll quit my job because I was a good saver back then, even before I knew what f.i.r.e. was, and we'll go there. So we did that. And when I was there, the iPhone just got released in China. So I created an iPhone app to teach Chinese people English. It was like just a Chinese translator thing for the first iPhone that came out in China. So that's just an example of like me always trying to make more money in some way. So even though I was there just knowingly not having a job for 3 months, it was just in the forefront of my mind, like, oh, I could use this time to maybe build something that could pay me money in the future. And it did for a little while. I made a few $1,000s over a couple of years off of it, which back then when I wasn't having any sort of income coming in, that was great. So yeah, there's a lot of luck involved in the timing of things, but focus on that. And like debt was never an issue, but never an option like credit card debt or anything. To give you some more luck involved, we didn't have any money to put the down payment on the house that we bought in 2004. So we borrowed off of my in-laws, now in-laws, and then we took a mortgage out on the rest. So that was the only sort of debt that we had. We weren't racking up credit card debts or anything. But yeah, so it's having that support system there. So going back to the luck and that aspect of it, like we're lucky that we have families that were in a position to support us in those early days. And we borrowed that money and then we paid it back in full. But we wouldn't have been able to buy that house had we not had that loan from my in-laws. And that then builds on everything. So it's like that set us up early days. And then the habits that we formed kept us going and then kept enabling that pile of money to grow and grow.
Yeah, so Brandon, thinking about the early days, thank you for acknowledging a lot of the luck. In all of our lives, we've got some luck, some adversities, and when those happen, you take advantage of them as much as you can, as you guys did. So now, where were you living? So I know there's UK, there's Scotland, there's the US. So as you were growing up, where were you living? Because I'm just curious about like maybe cultural differences and things like that.
So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a blue collar working class city, which I still love. Yeah, I think a lot of my views on money come from there. Like everybody's hardworking, especially in those days, just barely getting by probably. It wasn't a very rich town back in the 90s. So then we moved to North Carolina for when I was in 8th grade, so late 90s. And then I went to high school and college in North Carolina, went to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which again, a great top 30 school, but then I was paying $5,000 a year because I was in state. So that's another bit of luck that I was in a state that had really good in-state schools. And the UNC computer science program was like the first in the nation, and it was an excellent computer science department. So again, I got to just have a little bit of student loans that I paid off over the following decade, but they were very low monthly payments. So then my junior year at UNC, I went to Scotland to do a year study abroad. And again, I did a year because it was the same price as a year at Chapel Hill, whereas if I'd done 6 months or a summer, it would have been extortionate. But then it was a year, and that was just like standard Chapel Hill prices. So that's why I chose to do that. And then, yeah, halfway through there, I met my future wife and then went back to the States for 1 year to graduate. And then after I graduated, I moved back to Scotland. So then we were in Scotland until 2007. Then we did a 3-month ski trip because we sold our houses and belongings, quit our jobs, and moved back to the States and did a ski trip for 3 months. Because again, I didn't know about f.i.r.e. then, but I knew I wanted to use my money for freedom, I guess. And then, yeah, we're in the States for probably 7 years. And then we've been back in Scotland probably for since 2014 or something. So it's been a while now.
That's quite a trajectory. And I share the UNC Chapel Hill piece of luck because I went to med school there and it cost $500 a semester when I started med school in the 90s. So I exited med school with no debt. It was incredible. It's no longer the same, but we share the go Tar Heels, right? Problem is, I went to Duke undergrad, so I'm a bit conflicted. So at any rate, you had this bouncing around trajectory, you met your wife, and you ended up back in Vermont. You were being hyper frugal, hyper saving. I want to know kind of what was your savings rate, and did this focus on money in your 20s to reach FI at 34? Did it have any detrimental effects on you and or your relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So before I dive into that, it's also good to just mention the other bit of luck of moving from country to country allowed me to level out my salaries a lot more than I would have had I stayed put, because I would put in my resignation, say that I'm moving to the States. Nobody would be mad about that, but then they'd ask me to stay on remotely and they'd bump my salary by 25, 50%. And I did that a couple times, and that was a huge driver of upping my income. And again, that was just dumb luck. But by the time we got to Vermont, I was full force into saving for FI, and just the way it worked out as far as where my wife's job was, because she already had a job, and then where I wanted to get a job, I wanted to get a job at a nice university that's there because I wanted to get a free master's degree, which I ended up doing. So the distance between those was like over an hour, so it was like an hour and a half. So we ended up living in the middle of nowhere right in between, so that we'd each have a 45-minute commute. So by this stage, I was so obsessed with getting to FI as quickly as possible that our isolation in that area just compounded into probably the darkest point of our whole entire savings for FI. Because at that stage, I was probably saving 80% of my income, I think, at least. It was 80 plus, because I was earning a good software developer salary, but I was living in the middle of nowhere. Our mortgage was 581, I think, if the number sticks in my head. We were splitting it. So this is before when I was saving for FI. So we were like just splitting all our essential expenses. Our essential expenses were nothing because we were just in the middle of nowhere in Vermont doing not much. We would have like a $299 annual ski pass to Pico Mountain. So that was like $299 for the year. And that would be all our weekends, just go and skiing and stuff. So yeah, I got up over 80%, but I think the isolation was more the problem than the actual like depriving myself of things, because the isolation just meant that there wasn't that much that I could do. So I ended up slowly getting into sort of a depression. And I recount this story, I forget it somewhere on my blog, but I just remember skiing one time with friends and being like depressed. And I'm like, well, why am I spending this money to ski? Because I was like at some other mountain where I had to pay for the lift ticket. I was like, why am I spending this money to ski when I could be at home just saving money or studying? Because I was getting my master's at the time, and I could just be at home studying, and then I'll just save all that money. So it got to a point where I was like not doing social things to save money, and that was a mistake. And it wasn't until maybe a year or two of that really till Jill, my wife, was like, look, you're not happy. We're not happy. What are we doing? Let's move out of this place and get closer to family. And that's when we moved back to Scotland and sort of snapped me out of that hyper saving mode. So I definitely took it too far. I cut out everything, pretty much any discretionary spending, but that definitely got us to those 80 and close to 90% savings rate at some point. But yeah, that wasn't worth it. That was too far.
Yeah, it sounds like you got addicted. And it sounds like you were a savings addict in a way, and your wife helped you recover, and she recognized the problem that you couldn't see. So was it causing problems in your relationship, or was she helping monitor this sort of obsession with savings and FI for freedom, I guess is the reason? But it got to a very dark place, and maybe a lot of people don't know that, and that can happen. And your wife brought you out of it. What was it like for her, this experience of your hyper-frugalism?
I can't imagine how miserable it was for her, because here she is in a foreign country, in the middle of nowhere in the foreign country, with a husband that either wants to write about money, study, well, I didn't want to study, but I had to study, and or just sit around and not do anything. So I think it was probably a rougher time for her, because I didn't realize it, to be honest. I think that's the way sort of depression works. It just sort of creeps up on you, I guess. So it was probably worse for her, just because, yeah, she was just stuck in the middle of nowhere with somebody that really didn't want to do anything and wasn't happy about it. So yeah, she absolutely snapped me out of it. And yeah, we decided then to just move back to Scotland, and it was definitely a good move.
Yeah, I would say the same thing about my spouse. It's hard to self-monitor, and the mental health journey of FI is a significant portion of the journey with its ups and its downs. And our late starters hit the depths of depression potentially like maybe I did when you wake up and realize I'm 50, nobody's taking care of me. I don't even know what a net worth is, and I've got to be able to take care of myself in retirement. Shame, remorse, regret, grief, depression. It's a very emotional journey. Money is emotional and the journey is emotional. And I really appreciate your sharing these difficulties that a lot of people may not have known you had.
Yeah, no, and I'm sure it's more prevalent than people realize, because it is, especially for people with my sort of mindset, it is easy to get obsessed with it. And then every penny, like I was making coffee this morning and I just remember a time where my wife bought me an extra V60 cone, like the things that you make pour over coffee with. And I already had one and she bought an extra one. And I was like, I started stressing about the extra filters that I'd have to buy for it. And looking back on it, it's just absolutely insane. But when you're trying to save every single penny, then that's the thoughts that you have. And they're so counterproductive. And one of the biggest joys of being in the position we are now financially is that I've just let go of all of that. And I realize that I can live the fullest middle-class lifestyle that I'm used to, that I'm not going to be out buying fancy sports cars or booking flights on private jets that are going to in any way jeopardize our ability to spend. So I can just live completely freely in this lifestyle that I've grown up in and not question anything. And that's been one of the biggest benefits of having more than enough, that more than my target. And it's just been to realize that those like super tiny expenses are so insignificant. And that's something I talked about in my recent podcast that I put out, is doing a college calculation in my mind, because my brain is still 20 and I'm still back in Chapel Hill, and a $10 burrito is something to question, because I could probably get a $5 6-inch sub at Subway or something instead. So am I going to meet my friends for burritos when I know I'm going to spend 10 or 15 bucks? So my brain's still there, but my net worth is drastically different. So the biggest thing to get over that over the years has been taking that $10 expense, dividing it by my net worth, and then multiplying that number by my net worth now, and realizing that, oh, wow, okay, $10 back then is equivalent to thousands of dollars now, which is insane. So I should not think twice about a $10 expense now, because that's equivalent of like a few pennies back in the day. It's really hard to reprogram your brain after so long of obsessing about something. But yeah, just realizing those insignificant expenses has been a breath of fresh air to my life.
Yeah, it was kind of like the different phases of FI. You're super frugal, you are a saver, and it's just hard to turn that off when you finally reach financial independence, and it could take you to a dark place. So I appreciate you being so transparent about it, and I think it probably resonated with a lot of people.
I am so excited to announce our new partnership at Catching Up to FI with Monarch. Monarch is a comprehensive financial tool to monitor your financial health and life. I have been using Monarch for 3 years to track my spending, net worth, budget, savings goals, and more. I am not a spreadsheet nerd, and without Monarch's robust, intuitive tools and user interface, this process would have seemed impossible. I was recently also able to seamlessly share my data with our new flat fee financial planner for a retirement readiness checkup when I turned 60. He uses Monarch with all of his clients. After our analysis, I was shocked to find out that we were financially independent 3 years before I thought we would be. You can't manage what you don't measure. Using Monarch was critical in this review and planning process, and remains important in monitoring my ongoing financial health. Thanks to Monarch, all of our podcast listeners and community members have access to a 50% discount off their first year subscription. Simply follow the link below and use the discount code CatchingUp50 at checkout. I am proud to say that my sons are the first to use the code to join the Monarch family. I encourage you to share this link and code with family and friends this holiday season who need or want to take back their money and grow their wealth. I cannot think of a better, more generous or valuable gift or resolution. Happy holidays from all of us at Catching Up to FI.
So I'm curious, when did the Mad Fientist blog and podcast, where you wanted to share all of these experiments and all of this knowledge that you have with others. And I can imagine that was the time where you really got into it because you're writing blogs all the time, you're recording the podcast, you were a busy guy. And so talk to us about like where in your life trajectory was the blog and the podcast, and what was that doing for you at the time?
Yeah, so that was the peak of my isolation in Vermont. Like I said, I was getting my free master's degree at that time, so I was doing a lot of work with that. I was obviously working full time. And then the Mad Fientist started to take off. So the only way I got it all done was because I lived 45 minutes from work and there was a free bus that the university put on. So I'd have an hour each way in a free bus that I would write or do homework. So that was the peak of it. So I knew there was going to be ways that I could optimize my journey to f.i.r.e. if I put in the research, but I knew I wouldn't put in the research unless I had some sort of external motivation to do it. So having readers interact with it, or needing a new post, or asking for a new post every month or whatever, was the actual push that I needed to do the research into some of these things that I knew I could optimize. But back then, like when I first started, I thought I was going to optimize by becoming a better investor, by stock picking or all that sort of stuff. I quickly realized that that was probably not the way to go. So, but I'd already started the Mad Fientist by then. So I was like, well, what am I going to write about if I'm not going to be writing about optimizing my investments? And that's sort of where it led into like, well, tax optimization is a way to do it. And that's what ended up making the blog popular back in those days. And then it was an excuse to have a podcast to call people that I wanted to talk to, like Mr. Money Mustache or J.L. Collins, or even Jacob Lund Fisker eventually, which was a treat because he was the one that made the light bulb go off in my head. So it was an excuse to do that. So I was like, well, I have this podcast, so yeah, can I talk to you? And that's why I talked to like a lot of software developers back in the day, because the whole project's been selfish, to be honest. It's all been done in a selfish manner. That's why I never wrote about 529 plans 10 years ago when people were like, why don't you write a post about the 529? Like, I don't have kids. I don't care about a 529. It's going to be a terrible article because I don't care about it. So yeah, it all took place in that period of isolation in the Vermont woods. And it was good for productivity. I got a lot done in those years, but yeah, it wasn't the best for mental health.
So you were not only hyper frugal, you were a hyper optimizer, and you're cutting hairs finer and finer and finer. And it sounds like there's kind of an asymptotic nature to optimization. Looking back, was it really important to over optimize, or does it follow the 80-20 rule where 20% of the effort gives you 80% of the gains, and that can be enough? And you can win the game with 20% equaling 80%, and not necessarily. I think the FI community gets so focused on winning the game of keeping as much as they can growing for them. And waste is a problem. As you talked about with Ramit Sethi, it's okay to waste. We're going to waste. And we don't need to feel shame or regret or guilty about it. Did you realize also that you were maybe over optimizing and you needed to let loose on those strings a little bit?
Absolutely. But that's only come in the last few years as I've realized like the portfolio is growing faster than my imagination to spend it is growing. And it's something that I completely agree, 80-20. So much of the stuff that I stress about or would think about, or just the amount of mental energy I would put on something, spend on something, is just insane to look back on when it probably didn't even move the needle. But back then my mindset was just like every penny counts. So every optimization, even if it takes 3 hours of mental thought to save $10, that's worth it. Looking back now, it's crazy, but back then it made sense. And it was talking to Ramit for the podcast that where he said as systems grow, there's going to be more waste and it doesn't have to be perfectly efficient. And I think the example he gave was like, do you worry about efficiency when you're hugging your grandmother or something? And I was like, no, life isn't about efficiency. And there's some things that aren't efficient. And I think I'm a lot better at it, but I'm still not there. And to give you an example, we had somebody coming over to the house. I bought bagels for breakfast. We didn't end up eating any of the bagels. And I was like, I don't really need to be eating bagels after our guests leave. And I was like, it cost £1 for these bagels. And I was like, can I just throw them away? And I was like, yeah, I'll let them sit there. If anybody eats them, fine. If not, I'll just throw them away. I ate all the bagels over a span of a week. I couldn't just let them go to waste. So I'm not there yet. I'm definitely better. I'm accepting that some purchases aren't going to work out, but that was a test for me. It was literally £1, but I couldn't do it. Over the course of a week, I ended up eating every one of those stupid bagels. And I love bagels, but I didn't need to eat them. So old habits die hard. And even though I am focusing on it, it is still hard to just waste or knowingly do something that may not work out, but that's the sign of progress, I guess, is pushing you outside of your comfort zone. So I'm still doing it. And yeah, I wish I could have just focused on the 80%. I would say I'm definitely on the 80%. I'd say I'm there. And I'm even doing things that I know are unoptimized. So for one example, I'm rolling all of my various retirement accounts like 401a, 403b, self-employed 401k. I'm rolling all of that into an IRA. And that means I can't do a backdoor Roth ever again, but I don't want to do a backdoor Roth ever again because it'll save me some money and get more money into a Roth. But the hassle and the thinking if I'm screwing it up, it's just not worth it anymore. So I'm doing things now that are setting me up to not be able to optimize in the future. And it's all about simplifying my life. So I'm making progress. That's a long answer. But yeah, I wish I could have 80-20 the entire time, because even if it would have set me back 6 months to my FI number or a year, it really doesn't matter. It would have freed up my mind to do other things and focus on other things.
Yeah, Cody Garrett refers to that as return on hassle. And our friend Frank Vasquez talks about rather than optimizing, you should suffice and find balance. So let's go back again. You were saving 80%. You get to FI at 34. Jack and I were just talking about this before the show. What did that feel like? I mean, was it worth it? Was it like Yahoo? You did a debt-free scream like on Ramsey show, but it's really a FI scream?
No, none of the above. It was so anticlimactic. It was just another number on the screen, another meaningless number on the screen, to be honest. I don't think the number on the screen became meaningful until 2 years ago when I actually bought a house and used my portfolio to buy that house, this house. And that was the only time it actually became real. The money's been meaningless for as long as I've known. It was completely anticlimactic because the goalposts changed too. Like it was super lean FI at that stage. And it was like, well, I'll just keep working more and then that'll inflate the lifestyle a little bit more and whatever. And back then I was still working and I did quit because we were moving to Scotland. But again, it was the same thing that happened many times in my career where we would quit to move to another country. There'd be no ill feelings because the reason of quitting was like, well, I'm going to be in a different continent now. And they'd come back to me and offer me more money to do it remotely. And then remotely takes away 90% of the things I hated about my job because I love coding. I love software development. It was just I hated meetings and commuting and office politics and all that stuff. So I ended up working at the same job just remotely for another couple of years after that. So yeah, it was never like a finish line and your hands are in the air and you cross and break the ribbon or anything like that. It never felt like that at all. And again, it never even felt real. Like, yeah, theoretically I can now stop working, but I don't know. It was just such a weird, slow, awkward transition while still having the same job. And then all of a sudden, 2.5 years later, I didn't have that same job. Yeah, it was anticlimactic. It's just a random number on the screen. And it's very hard to actually understand that number. And unless you do those, like the college calculation thing that I talked about, that sort of makes it more real to me. And then, yeah, actually buying a tangible thing with it, made it more real to me. But yeah, anticlimactic. And it was actually really depressing, to be honest, because I'd been striving for this goal and it was going to solve all my problems and I was going to be extremely happy at the end of it and could do whatever I wanted to. And then a number that's slightly bigger on the screen didn't really change anything about my life or my habits or my thoughts or anything like that. So I would say it was less than amazing. It was maybe sort of like how you sometimes hear from like sports stars who finally reach their goal of winning the World Series or whatever. And then they're like, oh, now what? Now what do I do? So it's more on that scale than like, yeah, across the finish line, pumping my fists.
How did you feel, Jackie, when you reached 5? Was it like the air going out of a balloon? Did it feel super big deal? Did it make you happy? Or did you feel like Brandon's like, just another day at the office?
It's been 6 years for me, so not quite as long as Brandon, but I was in disbelief the whole time. Grew up in poverty and never would have imagined. But like Brandon was saying, it wasn't until I started doing things that I knew I wouldn't have not have done or been able to do while I was working. I did travel on longer vacations. I went back to college and for the first time ever did not have to work while I was in college. Like that made it real for me because I never had the luxury to do that. But so it's a pretty good feeling, but until you have those tangible things to sort of make it come to life, it just still seemed, for me, it felt a little surreal. But Brandon, the non-spender, so you bought a big house. Houses are expensive. That's a lot of money to spend. And inside your house, you've got this gorgeous studio. You got a keyboard in there. You got a guitar. Look at that. Okay, you got to go on YouTube to take a look at this. So Tell us how it felt when you had to spend all this and you purchased a house in Scotland or in the US?
Scotland.
In Scotland. Okay. So how did that feel? Like, to me, that's really turning a whole new dialogue, because it's not just purchasing the house. You got a lot of spending to do once you buy that house. So talk to us about that. That must have felt very different for you.
Oh, so different. So this is our third house that we've owned as a couple. And this is the first one I've actually enjoyed owning, because I should have never, ever owned as when I was so obsessed with saving. Because you're right, they're just nonstop expense after expense. And it was so stressful being a homeowner when I was trying to save all that money. So yeah, this is a complete switch for me. And it's only in the last maybe 2 or 3 years where I'm realizing that, hey, yeah, your peak spending years are 40 to 60. I'm 43 now, and that came quick. And so I'm already 15% into these peak spending years, and I'm not really that much better. And this is something that I got Ramit back on my podcast, I think 2019, to work on being able to spend more. And I'm like, geez, that's 7 years ago. And here I am still working on getting better at spending. So yeah, so this house has been a completely different experience. We bought a house that was more expensive than I was comfortable with when we bought it, because just my brain, again, is in 20s, and my past houses, I knew how much they were, and like bumping up incrementally was what my brain thought what we should do. Whereas this one was like a step up a bit more, but it was the only one we found after searching for so long, and we just went for it. And this, like I said, this is the first purchase that I've ever done that's really sort of made me realize, oh, I did save up quite a bit of money. And it is powerful in the fact that you can just buy things that are nice that will improve your life drastically. Like using money. I've never thought of using money as a last resort. It's a mistake. It's something that I feel bad about because I couldn't figure anything else out to not have to spend that money. That was my mentality before. Whereas now it's like, okay, we don't like a lot of stuff, but the stuff that we have, it would be nice to have nice stuff. And this studio is my dream for 20 years to have a studio like this. And I was like, well, if I'm not going to spend it on this, then what am I going to spend it on? Because I really struggle to think of anything that could improve our lives in spending. So this has been built out over the last 2.5 years or so. And it's been gradual and it's been fun. And there have been times where I thought, oh, okay, am I just off the deep end? Is this going to just be a very bad habit where I'm going to fill all these walls with stuff? And it hasn't been. I haven't bought anything new probably in the last maybe 6 to 12 months. And I have everything I need. So it's been a journey. It's been a reframing of everything. But it's the first time I've realized that money is useful in a way that's not just hoarding it, because that's been my mentality my entire life up until 2 or 3 years ago, probably.
So your brain was wired for collecting quarters, and you had to kind of rewire your brain. You engaged Ramit Sethi to do this, but in order to do it, you kind of had to hack your brain. And I think you talked about sort of 14 different hacks, how you justified your spending. All the Amazon boxes all of a sudden showing up at the house. You flipped the switch and all of a sudden the spend was on, so to speak, but you had to justify it. What did you do to rewire or retrain your brain when you hit that peak of enough, of abundance, of sufficiency, and just like, it's okay. I could let go. I need to let go because I don't want to die with my highest net worth. I'd rather focus on Bill Perkins and sort of a more die with zero philosophy, spend while you're alive. How did you hack your brain and how does it feel now? Did it work?
Yeah, so Die with Zero was huge for me. That's probably the most impactful financial book I've ever read because of where my mindset was. Like, I didn't struggle with saving or investing. Like, that was all natural to me, whereas spending is tough. So I think that is still the book that's impacted me the most. And it was the talking about different phases of your life and how certain spending, like, yes, I could save up for a mountain house when I'm 70, but I would much rather have an Airbnb when I'm 43 and go and ski when my legs can handle it and when my son's young and he'll be excited to do it with me. So it's sort of reframing it in that sense. That brings me back to an answer that I never gave you, actually, and I'm sorry, but of any regrets. And my regrets on my path to f.i.r.e. are few and far between, luckily, because we did travel a lot. We went to like 50 countries as a couple. We traveled cheaply, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad we traveled in that style because I wouldn't want to do it now. I'm too soft. But one regret is like missing like bachelor parties for my friends' weddings because we lived in Scotland at the time. We were going to fly back to the States for the wedding, it didn't make sense to go back a month or two early for the bachelor party because I was like, I'm not spending all that money on flights. And looking back, I should have spent the money on the flights because those are memories with my idiot friends that I'm not going to have because they had crazy times, and we're not going to do that in our 40s when it would have been a crazy time in our 20s. So it was experiences like that that I regret missing. And that's made me more cognizant of like taking advantage of these things that I can do now and not putting it off for the future. And it's been my main focus is to, like figure out what's important now to spend on and do it now. So I can still have these long-term goals and I can still save for these things, but I need to be using the money to do those things now, just at a more limited capacity. So I've actually built some software that I may be releasing at some point called wealthmachines.co. And the idea is taking that FI math and breaking it down and using it on your journey to FI, but also after your journey to FI. So to give you an example, like I love skiing, I love playing ice hockey, I love pond hockey, I love snow, I love winter, I love all that. So yeah, it is a dream of mine to have a mountain house one day so that we can play pond hockey with the kids whenever we want and go skiing all winter and things like that. And old me would have just, all right, buckle down, save up for that, don't spend any money, save up for that, and then 20 years down the road, we'll have this dream mountain house. But now it's like, okay, I can still build that wealth machine, but I have to realize that I could be taking out X% every year to do that thing. And I should force myself to take out that much because one day maybe I realize that that wealth machine's big enough and I'm taking out whatever, say $10,000, $20,000 a year to do that thing on the way to buying the whatever $1 million dream mountain house. And maybe $10,000 to $20,000 is enough to just do that forever and not buy the mountain house. And maybe there's a sweeter spot that's not that end goal. But the important thing is to be doing that right now. It's software I've built over the years that I've been using myself personally to keep that in mind. So yes, okay, I'm earmarking this for something, but I better be spending 4 or 5% of that every year to do that thing. Because one, I may not want to do that thing. We're terrible at figuring out what we want to do with our lives and what we think is going to make us happy. And the only way to figure it out is to actually do it. So it's a way to force myself to do these things and make an effort to book the trips every year and do the thing and spend that money on that thing, because it has been improving our lives because we are doing the thing, but it's also figuring out, well, maybe we just need a 1 month trip to the mountains and that's going to scratch the itch. And then we can come back to Scotland and just live our normal lives. Or maybe it's 2 months, or maybe we do want to buy that mountain house one day and we're saving towards that, but it's figuring it out by doing it. Whereas before I would have planned and thought about it and spreadsheeted and saved for a decade without actually doing anything. And then it could have been like FI, where you hit the number and you're like, okay, I can do that thing. And then it's like, well, now I'm 70 or 64 and I don't want to do it. The thought of being out in the cold that long doesn't make me want to do it. So that's been a big mindset shift. And that all came from Die with Zero, to be honest. It's like, okay, there's a season for everything. And $1 spent now could be a lot more than $10 invested and saved that becomes $10 in 10 years. So that was eye-opening for me. It's still a book that I recommend often.
One thing that Bill Perkins said, I think, in the book that you quote often is, when's the party? There's going to be a party with your money sometime. Are you going to be at it or not, basically?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And the way the trajectory I was on, I wasn't going to be at the party. Another thing that's been helpful was ProjectionLab. Kyle, I've chatted with the developer of that. He's a single developer, wrote some beautiful software called ProjectionLab. Putting my money in that and seeing where that portfolio is going with our current level of spending was also eye-opening. It's like, I need to get better at spending because the problem is just going to get bigger. And problem, in quotes, it's a great problem to have. And I know to some people it's going to sound ridiculous even talking about it as a problem, but I feel like it is an issue with FI.R.E people and people that have brains like mine, I guess. So, but yeah, that was also helpful, is like projecting out where that portfolio is going with the current level of spending and realizing that you should start spending more and you can start spending more. So it's been a journey. It's so against everything that my brain feels like it needs to do. So it's just like unlearning all these habits that are no longer serving me, that served me well in the past, obviously, but that are counterproductive these days.
Well, I love that you're still using those developer skills, because the media, when they cover FI.R.E, they probably talk to people like you with an 80% savings rate, but they're like, don't you still want to be a productive person? Why would you just want to retire? And like you said, you don't really consider yourself retired, but you're still using those amazing skills that you had when you were working for people that you knew probably weren't even as smart as you. And now you are just adapting it to where you are in your life today. So I'm definitely going to be one of those beta testers. We'll keep our audience up to date with where that is at. But based on some of the experiments that you've done in the past and some of the software that you built, I'm sure it will be amazing. So you're the experiment guy, right? Mad Fientist. So you had some experiments that you did post-fi that has nothing to do with software or anything. You had the kids. I know that was not a part of the plan. So I'd love to hear about you becoming a father, the kids, and how they are shaping how you think about money and legacy and fi and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, my post-fi life is completely different than what my pre-fi idea of what my post-fi life was going to be like. Yeah, I thought my wife and I would stay dinks. We would just be traveling the world and seeing and experiencing lots of different things, living in different countries and all this sort of thing. Yeah, my life is so different. Never thought I'd buy a house again. Now I love having a house. And we have two kids, two young kids, a 1-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. And man, yeah, they've changed my perspective on everything about life, to be honest. And even going back to me knowing it all and my bosses being idiots, like I know I can see now that they had a whole different other viewpoint of everything that we were doing. I was focused on this like one task and they had to imagine the whole big picture. So me as a 20-year-old punk kid thinking he knows everything, I know I didn't know everything now. And I think kids help with that too, because at least my son, he's so determined to do things. And he's like, why can't I do this? I know I can do this. And I'm like, well, you're not seeing the whole picture. So yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. To be honest, even when we decided to have kids, I wasn't so sure. I did it more for my wife than anything, but I have loved it more than anything I've ever done in my life. And it's been the biggest, most amazing thing that I've ever done. And it's made me appreciate my past financial decisions because I've been able to just be with my kids since they were born pretty much every day. Maybe I think I slept like in a different city maybe twice. And yeah, every other day it's like waking up with them. And yeah, it's been amazing. And I'm so thankful for it. And I think that's why I took my son going off to nursery so hard, because I was so used to just spending like all day, every day with them. But yeah, it's been amazing. We go back to those experiments that we talked about, like you're so bad at knowing what you want. The reason being a father was so scary to me is like all the other experiments I can undo, really. So this is like the one experiment that is like, oh, I just have to do it and then see how it goes. It's not like I can undo it, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I took the risk and just went for it. And yeah, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. So it's inspired me to do more experiments and to put myself into other situations. Like I've been, especially in the fire world, I've become like a recluse. This is the first interview I've done in a year, and I don't do any in-person events really anymore. And it sort of inspired me to maybe get back out there and start meeting some people again and just doing things outside my comfort zone, because this is the problem. I wrote an article called Happiness Through Subtraction. And it's talked about how it's so much easier to figure out what you don't like about your life and use money to remove those things than it is to spend money on things that you think you want, because it's really tough to figure out what you do want. But I realized now that's wrong. Like, oh, it's not wrong. It is technically true, but I would have never understood the joys that you get from having kids, because those are only knowable once you have kids, I think, in my opinion, just because it's like a level of love that I just haven't experienced before. So happiness through addition does work in some ways. So it is still important to push myself to experiment in adding things that I think, well, I like that or why not like that? I don't know. Or is it going to be worth it? I don't know. And that's where going back to like having some waste in the system is okay. Like sometimes it's not going to work and that's going to be a waste of money, but I think trying it's important, and having kids is definitely showed me that's important. So yeah, I'm experimenting more with happiness through addition now because of the kids.
Well, I mean, you can't really math out kids. They don't math out very well. Did having kids and adding that to the lab, the experiment, put any financial stress on you? Because you've got 20 years of raising them, launching them, college, medical bills. Did all of a sudden you realize maybe I'm not as fi as I thought I was, or was there cushion in the space for the kids?
There was definitely cushion, but it's actually been the opposite. I think our expenses have decreased because of the kids, at least now, because yeah, much more hassle to do anything that's not just being in the house, as parents know. So our restaurant bills have gone down. We don't go out for fancy beers anymore because one beer will just put us to sleep. We don't travel as much anymore because, the thought of having 20 suitcases back when we used to travel with just a backpack, it's a whole different experience. As of now, I would say that the expenses have gone down drastically because of kids, but there's buffer because of those years that we, post 5 years where we weren't spending enough, and just, again, all these old habits that die hard. Yeah, I'm not concerned about the kids increasing our expenses to a point that it's going to be significant. And again, the past 3 years have actually been a decrease. So
you've inverted the equation. As late starters, we kind of don't live life the way you've lived life. You've lived a very contrarian, Charlie Munger type inversion life where you saved hard, went fi, then bought the house, had the kids, maybe even buy the Tesla because you have the money to do it. And I didn't do it that way. I was paycheck to paycheck as a high income professional. I woke up at 50 and I'm like, oh my God. And I had the houses, the cars, the kids, all on the front end. So you backloaded kind of the experiential side of life and front loaded the savings kind of life. I think our late starters want to put you in their shoes. All right, Jackie, you have a story to tell. You checked out our sponsor, the Alloy Market, with a little gold bar that you sold them. How did that work out for you?
That's right, Bill. The short answer is it worked out great. I was really kind of surprised at how seamless the process was. I just ordered the kit online. They had it to me within days. I put the gold in the package, mailed it out, and almost instantly they notified me it was on the way. They told me when they received it, and they finally gave me a quote. And do you know how much I got for it?
No, Jackie, how much did you get?
Well, I got $285. And you know where that's going. That is going in my new grandbaby's 529 plan. And I was, again, very surprised at how seamless the process was.
All right, that's thealloymarket.com. You can declutter this season with your gold, silver, and platinum. Where do we go, Jackie?
Yeah, and here's a bonus. If what you send in is worth more than $199, you will get a $15 bonus. Just enter the code CUTOFI15 and get your bonus.
So say you didn't do this. Say you woke up at 35, 40, 45, 50. Would you approach anything differently, given that you'd had life experiences and the things and the expenses in order to get to FI in that 10, 15, 20-year time frame? What would you do as a late starter?
that's a great question. Well, one, if I had kids and I was a late starter, I don't know how working parents do it, or single moms do it, or single parents. So much respect, because I'm exhausted and we have both of us here wrangling these two. So yeah, that would be tough. I think even though I wasn't happy with the deprivation zone, I think stripping everything back did help me figure out what is important in life. So if you are a natural spender and you've had trouble with it, just really cutting it out until it hurts and then adding back in the stuff that you really want is probably good, because a lot of people just spend out of habit. And like same with, I still spend out of habit, and I'm trying to push out of that on the other side of it. But yeah, so maybe stripping back to the bone to figure out what really is important, because it's a later start. You're going to have to save and undo some of those expenses that are just you're used to all the time. Yeah, it's tough because my brain is so wired to saving that it is hard to put myself into the shoes of somebody in their 40s that has just spent everything and then some. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think that would be the first step, cutting it all out and then figuring out what you really need to add back in, and then gradually adding things back in and until you're hopefully at a more sustainable spending level.
I agree, and I think Jackie would agree too. It's kind of like Marie Kondoing your life. Taking your closet, dumping it on the bed, and all the things that don't fit, they get donated, and then the things that work for you get put back, the things of true lasting value. And then you hustle your income like you did. Job hop and raise your income, raise your savings rate, get the investing piece down, get the debt paid off. The path, in my mind, for the late starter isn't so different from the one you led, but the problem is we can't frugal down to the level of deprivation that you were able to do in your youth. I found for my journey that about a 35, 40% savings rate, that's where we could feel it, but it didn't hurt. And then getting the investing right is important. And then you stay the course, just like you did for that 10, 12 years, head down, stick to the plan, stay the course. And then you come out the other side. And I'm going to come out of the closet here on the show. I found out last week that I was FI. And just like you guys, I was kind of like, big whoop. It didn't change one thing one day to the next. The one thing it did change was I now choose to go to work. It doesn't change anything right that moment. And I'm not on a cliff, but reaching it is kind of like going to the bank when we paid off our mortgage. We were like all excited. We had this big check we were going to write to pay off the mortgage. We hand it to the teller. She kind of shrugs her shoulders, punches in some numbers and says, "Thank you, next." And we're sitting there. This was just a huge moment for us. And it was no big deal. It was just another transaction, as if it was depositing $10. I'm in shock. I'm in awe. But I'm also like, my life doesn't change. Am I any happier? Not really. It's a great goal. And like you said, with the sports stars who get a gold medal, there's a big falling off after that. Like, what's next? And then you got to work on the what's next in the time before FI, I would think, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, huge congrats. That's amazing. And yeah, that's incredible. So huge congratulations to you. But as you were talking there, it made me think of something else that I would recommend. And one thing I want to touch on first is like just the mindset shift. I forgot about that, was working when you don't have to. It sort of flicks the switch in your brain. And I did get happier at work. And hopefully the same you find with you, because I knew I didn't need it and I didn't put up with a lot of the BS that I did before, because I was like, well, they can fire me if they want. That's fine. I'll just focus on the things that I'm really good at, that I'm contributing, and I will just ignore some of the other stuff. So it did change my enjoyment of work, which I only recalled once you were talking about your situation. And that also sort of led me to advice I would give is, don't rush to the FI finish line. Like, no matter how bad your finances are now, I would work on building a life that you enjoy at the present, and not thinking that FI is going to solve everything, because it won't. So yeah, if I had gone, even me going back, I would have just maybe worked myself into a job that I really loved, because it's no joke having all your time to yourself and having to motivate yourself with something other than needing to get a paycheck or needing some money. It's not easy. Even now, what are we, 8 years in, 9 years in? It's not easy to self-motivate to do the things you know are going to make you happier. And a lot of those things, work gives you, like forced socialization, a purpose of contributing to something. Work gives you all those things, and you don't have to find the motivation to go get them. Whereas I could watch TV all day and that nobody's going to tell me anything else. And some days I feel like it because I maybe feel sick, or I'm tired because I was up all night with the kids. And having to have that constant self-motivation to know I'm going to do this thing because I know long-term that's going to make me happier and it's going to be good for me. It's sometimes exhausting. So I wouldn't rush to the FI finish line. I would take your small wins, and I would obviously save, because more money is more power, and more power is more options. And all those things are good. Power, money, options, those are all good things to have. But I wouldn't rush to quit the job, and I wouldn't rush to think that this new life post-FI is going to be all butterflies and rainbows and it's going to be amazing, and that's what I'm going to sacrifice today to get there. So yeah, even if you're a late starter, I think start using the money and the power that money gives you today, and don't focus on the end goal so much. That only came to me when you were talking about your situation, because I was like, oh, don't rush and quit.
The part of the plan, and Jackie and I could do a whole show on this because it's been an interesting journey, but I felt exactly like you felt. I'm like, okay, I don't have to be at work. I choose to be here. I don't have to put up with the bullshit, and I can focus on what's meaningful. And all of a sudden I was listening to patients better. All of a sudden I was a better doctor a little bit than the day before, because I'm unencumbered. I think financially fit and financially free doctors are better doctors, because they don't have the weight of the worry of all, say, the expenses they've taken on. It's like a heavier backpack or a more full closet or an attic that's full of stuff. If you unencumber yourself, take with you what's important, and you're a lighter person, you're going to be better out in the world and be a better mentor, be a better friend. Reaching financial freedom doesn't necessarily change what you do in life. I'm going to scale back. I'm going to turn up the passive income dial and turn down the active income dial. And maybe there's a sweet spot where I still work 4 shifts a month. Maybe I don't, and I negotiate days only, no more nights and holidays, because if they don't want to do that, fine, I'm out of here.
Well, yeah, I love this new bill. Brandon, you brought it out of him. I'm so happy to hear some of these things for the first time. Brandon, I know one of your passions, and I remember you doing this shortly after you retired, is that you wanted to focus on music. And you put out an album. I believe at the time I bought the album. I don't even think I listened to that kind of music, but if Brandon's doing it, I'm definitely going to listen to it. So I know this is something that brings you joy. So tell us a little bit about your music, the first album. Is there a second album? And let us know what is going on the music front.
Yeah, no, that was a huge driver for wanting to reach financial independence. And again, this just goes back to like childhood dreams. Like music was the most important thing growing up as a hobby and with my friends and everything. And I always wanted to participate in it, not just be a consumer of it, actually do it. And of course, like my job was an easy scapegoat why I wasn't doing it. It was always because I had a job. And looking back, it was complete BS. Like I had plenty of time to do it. It was the things that I found after removing my number one scapegoat excuse. It was, self-doubt and not thinking I could do it and being scared to try because then I don't want to lose the dream of doing it. I would rather just have the dream always be there and think one day I'll do it rather than try and fail and know I could never do it. It was like I had maybe 3 or 4 years of post-fi life and I had made no progress on that goal. And it was a constant source of stress and I felt bad about it because I had removed my excuse and yet I still wasn't doing it. And it was only the pandemic, to be honest, that made me actually do it because I was locked inside. In the UK, especially, we were only allowed to go out 1 hour a day to exercise, and that was it. So I had no more excuses and nothing I could distract myself with. So I eventually just buckled down and did it. And it's still one of the proudest achievements of my life, not because it's a Grammy-winning album or anything like that. I look back on it and think, oh, geez, that's so many things I would do different now. I know what I had to go through and what I had to overcome to do it. And I did it, and I'm so thrilled. And the main reason for wanting to do that, not to have an album, but to actually play songs live that I had written myself. So played some festivals last summer and played in some clubs in Glasgow and just got to be weird on stage and just have fun, which has been a lot of fun just to do the weird things that I wanted to do when I was 20, and I can do them now as an even weirder 43-year-old because I'm 43 doing it. And yeah, it's been great. So I thought that scratched the itch, but then we bought this house and I was like, I can't build a studio like this and then never use it. It can't just be window dressing. So over the last year and a half, probably, with 2 small kids in the house, I've managed to put together a 4-song EP that is coming out in December, and I'm absolutely thrilled about it because finally I completed all the other things on my little tick list that I wanted to do and experience, and it's ticked them all off. And I'm so thrilled about it and excited to go play some more festivals and more shows next summer and keep using this equipment. And then now it's the burden of my kids. Now they have to figure out how to use all this stuff and make stuff with it, because that's what I say now, because it was a horrendous process. I still don't like the process of doing it. It's constant self-doubt and just feeling absolutely terrible about yourself. But I'm glad I did it. And even though it's 4 songs, I was hoping to get another album out. But like I said, we got 2 small kids that don't sleep.
You're telling us that Fi unleashes the creator, the creative in your brain. You were creative before Fi because you did the Mad Fientist, and that morphed into other things. And that's the message I would like to get out to our audience is you've got to flex these creative muscles before your Fi and not just focus on the maths, because those creative pursuits, the relationships that you create are going to carry forward into your freedom. And who knows where it will take you, as it has with you. You said you're releasing an album in December. Do you have a title? And you're going to have to send us links so we can let our audience find it and download it and play it.
Yeah, that's the only thing I care about these days. I don't care about any Mad Fientist views or any sort of thing like that. It's only the music plays. I will send you a link. I'll put a little landing page together or something so you can find it. I got to say thank you to Jackie, though, because look at this. See if I can move this camera. You helped me get that plaque, which is still the weirdest and most amazing thing in my life. It is to have a Billboard charting album. There's no reason I should be on the Billboard charts, but it's only because of kind people like you that bought the album, and I get to have that cool plaque.
Wait, tell me, I didn't know this. You're on the Billboard charts?
Yes.
Congratulations for that and the new album. So give us a description of what this award was, the Billboard chart. What is that, and the name of the album that won it? And then, of course, we want to know the name of the new album, too.
Sure, yeah. So that album was called Dead Pixel, and because of kind Mad Fientist readers like you, it got onto the top current album sales chart at number 39, But even more mind blowing than that, it got on the top album sales chart. So the top album sales is like Michael Jackson's Thriller still on there. And my album came up right next to Nirvana Nevermind, because these albums, it's like all albums in the entire country. And yeah, it got to number 85 on the top album sales chart. So absolute insanity. And nothing came out of it. It's not like I secured any like record deals or played any other shows, but I got to have that plaque, and that every time I see it, it's just absolute joy that comes into my mind, because there's no reason I should be on that chart. And it was such a cool, surreal experience. So
it's like your Billboard album chart is kind of like the picture I have of me crossing the marathon finish line with the time on it. These are the moments where you can take yourself, it's a sensory memory, it takes you right back to it. It's only really for you. And it's one of those things that I think plays into Die with Zero, because the flip side of that is the 5 regrets of the dying. And wouldn't you lie on your deathbed saying, I wish I had done this studio, I wish I had done this album? But you've done that, and you've ticked off something that you can say, I've lived a full creative life. You've got a whole life ahead of you with your kids and whatnot. But to me, I look at it like, how would I feel? For example, I'll tell another funny story. My wife has always wanted a hot tub, and this was a non-fi thing. We're on our journey, and we need to save money. This is going to be a whole landscaping deal, and building a tub is going to be a very complicated project, because that's the way we do things. And she plays the card that I had no argument for. She said, on your deathbed, you will regret not having put together a hot tub for me.
It's good.
I mean, what do you say to that? You love your spouse, and you're right. Okay, you win. It's over. We're going to spend the money.
Absolutely. Well, no, it's funny you say that, because it was a dream that didn't die. It was like, I wanted it to keep dying. I figured by the time I hit 30, it would die, because I'm not going to write an album when I'm 30. Surely that's like, yeah, my teenage dream of writing an album. I thought it would die. It didn't die. I thought it would die after reaching FI, and I'm like, oh, I could do anything. Why would I sit around writing an album when I'm nearly 40? It doesn't make sense. But it just wouldn't die. And that's what I knew. I just have to do it, because that would have been a huge deathbed regret. So this is just the icing on the cake, the actual Billboard. It's the struggle that I went through to get it, and knowing how hard every step of it was, and I still did it. That's what the huge benefit to me is. Any future challenges that I face, I could just really buckle down and do it, because so many times along the journey, I thought I couldn't do it. So yeah, so that's absolutely it. It was going to be a huge deathbed regret. And thankfully now it's not.
Well, that leads into maybe a final question or two here, because we want to know, you're back in the laboratory, you're podcasting again, maybe you'll blog again, you're coming out of your cave back into the FI world, which we support, because you are a fantastic mentor and now a fantastic friend. What are the new experiments on the horizon? What's ahead for the Mad Fientist, father, husband, musician?
It's trying to live in the present more. This EP was my last goal. It was my last big goal. It was my last deadline. It was my last long-term project for the sake of crossing the finish line. I read Jordan Grummett's Purpose Code. I don't know if you guys read that or had him on the show, but he says like small, little p purpose rather than this big P purpose. And yeah, it's more focusing on the little things, the daily things, transferring financial and time wealth into some of the other types of wealth. I read Sahil Bloom's 5 Types of Wealth, I think it's called. And that was good. I think it was like money wealth, time wealth, mental wealth, community wealth, and health wealth. Probably butchered those, but you get the idea, like different types of wealth. So it's using my time and my financial wealth to enhance those other types of wealth. So organizing family trips, like maybe spending money to rent a big beach house and inviting my whole extended family, because I haven't seen them in so many years, and doing things like a week-long trip and inviting my friends and things like that. So it's trying to move into that area. So I don't know how that's going to go, because I've only just started thinking about it, because yeah, the EP was the core focus for the last like year and a half. I knew I had a deadline. I said December of 2025, it had to go out. And that's been the core focus up until now. So, but yeah, that's my last big one. If something interesting pops into my head and I feel like sharing it with the Mad Fientist audience, then I will, but there's no long-term goals. And even with this software that I've written, I'm going to take it slow and probably just release it to beta testers for a year or 2 years and just see if it's useful and add features as they come up and as I'm inspired to do them. But no deadlines, no big projects, no big goals. Just trying to figure out just day-to-day enjoyment. Playing more sports, I think. I've realized that's like a easy way to spend some financial wealth and turn it into community wealth and health wealth and things like that. So yeah, I've been curling. I'm in Scotland, so I curl now, which has been loads of fun. So I'm an active curler. So maybe 2030s Winter Olympics, you'll see, but there's no goals to get there.
I love it. You know what we need for the show? We need a picture of you curling. That
Yeah.
would be hilarious. That we would
Yeah.
love to put that on the thumbnail.
I don't even think I have one. I need to get Jill to come and watch me one day because, yeah, my lunges, I'm real low these days. I'm proud of it.
You're their incessant experimenter. You have an insatiable curiosity. And that's what the community, we in the community love about you. You have so much to offer. I'm glad you're focusing on friends, family, giving, the present, the community. These are the things that we really need to do when we're FI. These are the 4 sources of joy, these 5 sources of wealth that we share. And I like the way you said time wealth. I mean, that is definitely our one finite resource and the asset that we need to make the most of. No, we're going to waste time. That's okay. We can't optimize it. But you're doing such a great job of modeling for us and mentoring us, the rest of us in the community, one way of pursuing and enjoying FI, that we can take the pieces of it from us that we need in our lives, that we don't have to live your life. It's yours and yours alone. But what you've done is sets great examples for so many of our late starter community. Like, okay, I can take that tool he talked about and put it in place in my journey.
No, thank you. No, I'm glad you enjoy it. Yeah, I feel so bad because, yeah, it'll be like 8 months and then I'll send something and I'm like, do people even remember who I am when I send it? So yeah, definitely don't get spammed. If anything, you'll forget who I am by the time I get around to sending you another email. So yeah, thank you for the kind words on that. And if I do put something out, it is only because I'm interested in it. Because like I said before, this has been a purely selfish endeavor, this whole process. So it's only when I get really excited or interesting about it that I put something new out these days, which is, again, a part of letting go. This was maybe 2018, 2019. I started getting stressed and putting pressure on myself to do things or to be speaking at things. And I didn't enjoy any of that. I enjoyed researching things when something interesting came up or talking to somebody when I wanted to ask them questions about something. And I was like, all right, I'm only the one putting my pressure on myself. So I just stepped back and I said, I'm just going to do it as I have something interesting to say. And thankfully, a lot of people have stuck with me, and it's been really nice to have readers like you and all the kind words you've said that inspire me to do a bit more. So thank you.
I can't imagine having a parent that doesn't work. Growing up with a parent that's around all the time, let alone 2 parents, an intact, wonderful marriage of over 20 years where both parents don't work. And the model you're setting is, okay, I'm going to be retired right out of the gates. What do you do as when you flip the equation and the kids aren't watching you leave the house and going to work and you're always present? Isn't that a challenge for the kids and for you?
That's the big unanswered question. And that's maybe where my future podcast episodes are going to go. If I do them, it's going to be trying to figure that out because, yeah, it's something my wife and I just recently talked about. As my son's getting older, I think we want him to see us working because he hasn't. We've just been here and even going to nursery to pick him up and talking to one of the teachers. And she was like, yeah, he was sad one day. So we tried to talk to him about like, what's mommy and daddy doing at work right now? And he didn't know what we were doing because we weren't at work. So it's like, yeah, it's weird. We want him to see like us with our hard work ethic and demonstrating it because right now, yeah, we don't work. So that's something we talked about. And I think it's something that we'll end up adding to our lives over the next few years, maybe some sort of community business. So there's a lot of brilliant things that I've learned from Mr. Money Mustache over the years of reading his work and being his friend and seeing him in person and things. But I think one of the most brilliant things he did was buying that co-working space in his hometown because now he has this hub of local community that he can go and socialize when he wants to. And he's building up his local community and his local friend group. And I thought that was an amazing way to, we talked about earlier, taking that financial wealth and converting it into a community, like friendship wealth or whatever Sahil Bloom called that version of wealth. And I thought that was really, really interesting. The current thought is maybe to start a little coffee roastery. And I love my coffee. And it's a habit that is not unhealthy if in moderation, because the idea of owning a brewery or something would be amazing because I love really good beers, but I don't want any excuse to drink any beers. And like I said earlier, I fall asleep after one with having two kids that don't sleep. So I don't drink beers anymore, but coffee is like, I love my morning coffee more than most other things in my daily routine.
I am going to be the first person to jump on a plane to have a cup of coffee, or actually my matcha tea, at the Mad Fientist coffee roastery. And that is going to be like Longmont is to the Phi capital of the world. All of a sudden, Edinburgh, or in the vicinity where you live, will become a Mecca destination. If you build it, the Phi world will come, I am sure. You heard it here first. The Mad Fientist with his coffee addiction you heard about it in all the podcasts, and Ramit has tried for him to elevate his game with coffee.
True.
You got to tell Ramit with this. You got to tell him you're going to create a roastery now.
Yeah, that's a good way to use money to elevate it. That's true. I think if I did do that, I would tell him, because that would be actual success in his eyes, potentially. That's a good call. So that would be me elevating it, but we'll see what happens over the next 3 to 5 years.
So we want Ramit on the show. So since you've managed to out the coffee roastery here, we want you to tap on Ramit and say, you know what? Catching Up to Phi needs to have you back on and maybe talk to Brandon about his new experiment.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, it's been a while since I've been meaning to catch up with him, because I feel like I'm making progress. But I feel like hesitating to contact him again, because I think he'd still think my progress is too small, which I feel like it is too. So I'm going to push myself for the next year, and then, I'll reach out to him again and I'll give you guys a good word.
That'd be great. We'd appreciate it. All right. So Jackie, it's been fun experimenting today with the Mad Fientist, our friend Brandon. Now, you have any final words for the show today?
Yeah, I just want to say I think you've made amazing progress, especially when you consider the incremental progress of where you were approaching Phi and where you are today. So I love it. And I think Ramit would be very, very impressed. But you have shared a lot of very important things with our audience. And I think the biggest one is enjoying the moment, that sometimes we do go overboard, and it's okay to reflect back and to look at that and to slow it down and enjoy the time that you have. I definitely experienced that as well. But this has been great. This is one of my dreams come true, because like I said, you were probably the most influential voice on my Phi journey, and you have touched way more people than just me. So I'm speaking for a lot of people. For any of our audience that didn't know you already, now they know you. Before Mad Fientist, when you were in the throes and the depths of the caves in Vermont, and to post Mad Fientist, the father, the husband, and living your best life. So thank you so much for joining us today. Like, this meant the world to me. Yeah, I know you're going to touch a lot of other people.
Well, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. Maybe we'll have to call this one Wealth Machine in honor of the software, because I think we do create these financial perpetual engines that run in the background for us to give us the potential energy to do whatever pursuits take us. There's so many things that freedom can do for us and for the world, and you're teaching us how to do that. Build your wealth machine. Join Brandon Ganch, the Mad Fientist, Jackie, and I on this journey, and we will see you next week on Catching Up to Phi. Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you, guys.
So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brizard. We love them, and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community, and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptophi.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services, because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Phi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Phi. Cheers.